If you do go to today's Moodle page, you'll download the dog treat ad and the magazine pages folder. Both of them are zips where you can find all the information. So for the magazine ad, double click, open it up. I'm giving you 3 different pages to work from. And also on them, I've given you the images and also text that you'll place within this particular document. Same way for this one. Same thing, just different orientation. The final one, I'm going to leave up to you as to where and how you want to frame this off. So for the first one, also notice I'm giving you a horizontal or a vertical rule where I want you to cut the frame. Remember, we don't just want it to have a simple, not frame, picture window. We don't want to have a simple one. We want to have some sort of part of the image breaking into the text area. And so that's what the first thing we're going to do for this particular ad layout. When you open it up, we want to be able to see your images at full resolution. This will help you draw off around the area, especially once you zoom in. You can see it's got very, very low quality. So under View, we'll change the display performance to high quality. Give it a second. There we go. When I cut this out, what I want to do is to follow this line until it reaches the subject. In this case, it's the coffee mug and the grinds, and then start following around the subject back into the line and then off to here. I want to cut out everything that's on the bottom part of this one. We're going to make it very, very simple. All I'm going to use is my pen tool. And the pen tool in InDesign works the same as in Illustrator. And I'll go pretty quick, just clicking from one point to the other until I get to my subject and start framing it off. I'm going to do a very, very sloppy job, but you'll get the point of creating this one. Hey, come on in. When I reach a stopping point, I'll let you take over. Back up to my line. Don't want to go past it. Remember, you can hold down the Shift key and that'll give you a straight edge line. Once you're over here, we're just going to do click around and connect it back to the starting point. Nothing you haven't done already before. Now I've got this set up for my mask. We'll swap out the colors and change your foreground color to white or paper. And you kind of get the idea. It's very rough in this case, but this is framing off the top edge from the bottom edge. The rest of the thing you have to do is use the text, use the images or logos that I've given you to reformat it how you want to lay out your type. You can change up anything that you want to for these layouts, so don't feel like you have to keep everything the same size or the same font. Feel free to move things around and change up the placement. In my case, you can see how I've laid this one out. I've made everything all caps. I've changed the font. Check out what I did to you. How did I make emphasis on you? Change the color. Why did I use green? Because it's in the logo. If I wanted to continue changing the color, what would be a good color for the text? Why brown? Because it's part of the image. You use what you got. Brown is there, green is there, so any color that I use tends to unify the entire design that I'm working with. Simple, simple, easy things. But like I said, feel free to move things around. You don't have to keep it what I'm showing you here. I could easily center that up. Now I've got a completely different layout, different type of theme from here. For the second page, same type of style. You've got a vertical guide this time. Use your pen. Once again, I'll go very quickly. Show you something different you can do with this one. This is going to be for a Bible study advertisement. Change that to paper. And so I've got frame on one side, text on the other. You don't always have to keep it a solid white. Now, it's good to have good contrast with it. If I was to just place this text on top of the picture, there's not enough contrast to make it show through, so I'd have to be changing a lot of colors. You don't have to keep it a solid white. You can drop the opacity of it and have something like this. Same style of effect, but in this case, you're drawing more contrast to this particular area, so when I do place text on top of it, it shows up a lot better. That makes sense? Have I lost everybody? Same thing. You can add effects to it. If you keep it at 100%, you could do that gradient feather. In this case, I can let it go from a 100% opaque to something a little more along those lines. I'm leaving it up to you how you want to lay this out, but the technique is let one side be the frame, let the other side be the text. And do make sure you bring everything to the front when you format it. Format the text however you want. For the very last one, like I said, I'm going to leave it up to you where you want to cut it. I could easily cut the top half of it off or the bottom half and have two different layouts for this one. But instead of drawing a straight line, let's go ahead and make this picture fill up my entire area. We'll say I cut off the bottom half. So I've got the pencils up at the top. Instead of keeping a straight line, you can curve your line. So there's no rules that say that a picture frame has to have a straight picture to it. So when I, in this case, make a curved line, I'll bring it up to, let's bring it up to here. Curving it in. And maybe going around the rest of my object for this particular one. Turn here. Since I'm curving this way, I'll curve it around the other way. Then wrap it off. So now I've got a frame that looks something a little bit like that. I've seen people go in at an angle that you can make it. I've seen different types of curves, so instead maybe a curve like this where it's placed on there. Once it's done, all you've got to do is drag in your text, format the text so that it looks good in its particular layout for that one as well. All good? Okay. We're doing the Sur2 evaluation, so I'm going to take a pause and let her zoom. For the second one, this one's a little bit more involved because it's a Photoshop thing, but it's a lot more fun, and it's a type of technique you'll find yourself using in more than just this particular area. So a silhouette frame is where you take whatever your subject is and you completely colorize it out. Usually it's white, and around it will be a solid color. All of your information is inside of the silhouette, and therefore it draws your attention to that particular information. To do this, you'll download the dog treat. I'll of course give you the add copy that I want you to use. You can format it however you want. And I'm giving you a choice between two different dogs to work in. So cute. Oh, yeah. And also, this is your product. I think on the handout that I gave you, I called this the product JPEG. What I meant to say was the Milkbone JPEG. So we're making one for this one. All right, so this is going to be done in Photoshop. Make a new one. 8x10 CMYK 300 resolution. We'll keep all that the same. Say okay to that. So I'm going to use this little guy. We'll drag him into Photoshop, and we'll place him into our document. Nothing you haven't done before. He needs a name. What's his name? What?
You don't like dog.
Oh, you don't like it?
Fine.
Scamp? Scamp. That's a good name. Okay, so this is Scamp. Scamp is the new Milkbone dog. I'm going to scale him up so he takes up most of the frame. Don't scale him so much that you're starting to crop off part of him. We want to see the whole thing. Remember to hold down your shift key so you can get it to work. We'll hit return for that. Oh, actually I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'm sorry, I did not mean to do that just ahead. The first thing you should do, we need to make the red background for it. So I'm going to follow my own directions. We've done this before. We're going to add a solid fill color to this background, or a new layer. So it's a fill layer. In this case, where it's going to be a gradient. So we're going from a lighter red to a darker red. By the way, I'm pulling the colors from the, here it is, from the product that we're working from. So I'm looking for this particular light shade of red, and you can see how it gets a little bit darker up in the edge. That's what I'm going to create in Photoshop on my gradient fill layer. For the gradient type, it's going to be two colors. You can click on it, and so we'll choose, in this case, I'm going to eyeball it. Lighter red, not too terribly light. Maybe a little more mid-tone. And in this case, we'll make it a little bit darker. That'll work out for now. We'll say okay. And keep in mind, on my screen, this is a good solid gradient. I know on yours it's striated. You can change the style up. In this case, I've got it going linearly from top to bottom. I found that a radial gradient tends to work out pretty good, going from the center point outward. Or even the angle gradient will do something like this. With this one, you can move it to the top, and it angles from one area to the other. And I think that looks pretty good for me. We'll say okay to that. Now that I've got my background set up, then you can import the picture of the dog that we're working with. What I need to do is I need to make a layer mask that cuts out the entire frame. Now, we've made layer masks before. They can be kind of a pain, especially once you've got a lot of little details. Y'all remember doing the motorcycle and all the little spokes inside of it? I'm going to give y'all a technique that's going to blow your mind. It's going to make everything go a lot faster. We're going to start off doing our regular layer masking. I'm going to use my quick selection tool. Remember, with the quick select, you can change your brush size, and you can just click and drag over the dog to make this selection. Come on, there we go. And I'm purposefully doing just kind of a rough and quick type selection. Once I have them selected, what happens when I turn on my layer mask? It masks out everything except for him. Now, I haven't done a good job. What's wrong with this picture?
It's not reversed.
More than that. Is this a good masking?
No.
Why is it not a good masking? A lot of white, a lot of little edges. This is a common problem for people who have like frizzy hair, or in this case, fur or feathers or anything where it's difficult to differentiate small areas between the foreground and the background. I'm going to show you how to clean this up. In my layer mask, I'm going to hold down the Control key, click on it, and choose Refine Mask. This is going to bring up my Refine Mask dialog box, and there's several options to choose from. I'm going to let the computer choose the edge for me. First of all, you can change your view mode. Sometimes by default it's on white or on black, so this will kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. You can let it be black and white completely, but we want to choose it on layers so I see exactly what it looks like once I'm finished. I do want to turn on Smart Radius. This will help let the computer help me make my selection. And look at my cursor. My cursor is a brush cursor. What I can do is click and drag around the edge and tell the computer where the edge of my document is. And you can see how I've missed all of this fuzzy little edge of his little ear. When I let go, Photoshop does all the masking. Check that out. That would be nearly impossible to do by hand very quickly. But by refining the edge, I can get that done. So I'm just going to go all the way along it. Even if I miss that little area, I can paint over it, and it finally gets inside of that area too. So if you ever wonder how they get a model on a cover of a magazine to appear perfectly, this is one of the techniques. Just going over the edge. These type of images that have a solid background tend to work out best because it's giving me just it's just looking for the white on top of it. Now if I had stuff in the background, it would be a little bit more difficult. Do pay attention to this part of his head. Notice it's white to begin with, so if I was to paint over it, you can see it starts to cut into the top of his head, so be a little bit careful. Don't want to cut him off. Okay, there is Scamp. He's all cut out nice and neat. You can play around with the adjustment of it. You can make it more or less smooth. That's not doing very much different. You can feather it, so you can give it a little bit more of outer feather glow. If you go too far, it's going to start looking like this. You can adjust the contrast of it, so this will give it sharper edges. Not really what I'm looking for. And you can also shift it in and out a little bit to clean up some of those edges as well. That's looking pretty good. For what we got to do, that'll work out. When we say OK, we'll give it a second to finish up. Now I've got a much better clipping mask than I had before. Any questions on that one? All simple, very, very easy, very to do. Remember, all I did was hold down Control and click on my mask and chose Refine Mask. Now I need to fill it in. Just as we filled in with a gradient, we're going to go back to layer and fill it in with a solid color. In our case, we want it to be just the solid color white. We'll say OK. Do y'all remember what a clipping mask does and why it's different from a layer mask? What does a clipping mask allow you to do?
Just a part of the picture instead of the whole.
Exactly.
The whole layer.
What part of the picture?
The dog.
Okay, exactly. Very, very good. Right now, you can see in my layers, it's all filling in everything on this fill color layer. I only want it to fill in the pixels where the dog is. So to do this, we turn on the clipping mask. This is the advantage of using it. So I've got it selected. Under Layer, choose Clipping Mask. Now, only the white pixels are showing up wherever the dog pixels are showing up. And this is how we get that nice little silhouette to work from. Have I lost everybody? All good? Very, very good. From here, it's simply a matter of placing the images and placing the text however you want it to be in this particular document. In this case, I'll throw in my product. You can see how I've laid it out. Oh, do be sure to hold down your Shift key. The layout, I'll leave up to you. So you can move this around. I've seen people place it dead in the center. I've seen people on either side. You can see how I've laid out mine. Obviously, this is the most important text, so I wanted it to be bold. I wanted it to be catchy. Why did I use red? It matches the background. It matches the product. To fill in the rest of the area, in our case, specifically for the body copy, click and drag, make yourself a text box. I'll open up my add copy and we'll copy and paste it from here. Come on, there we go. Copy it, paste it in here. Right now I've got it selected to be white in color, so we'll make it something we can see. Since this is kind of a subhead, I chose to make it different. I could make it larger or a little bit smaller. To fill in the area, by default, I can keep my leading at auto, and it would look something like this. Since I've got all this room down here at the bottom, I can adjust my leading, let's make it a lot bigger, and spread it out. Still says the same thing, but in our case it's filling in the area. There is one thing you cannot do in Photoshop that you could do in InDesign, and that's wrapping the text around a particular object. Remember, in InDesign you can turn on the text wrap or run around, and it'll detect the edges of this. In our case, we actually just have to hit a hard return and break the text right where it touches the product for this one. And maybe we'll move the product over a little bit so that it works with this. Make our text box a little bigger. What would be better? Another treat, of course. Y'all go away, I'm having fun. And you can see how I've laid out this one just to give you an idea. Like I said, leaving it all up to you for how you want to lay this one out. Any questions on how to do this? Want me to show you something again for this particular idea? Okay. The last thing that you're going to do, you flip back over on the back side of the handout that I gave you. I want you to remake an advertisement for some sort of food product. Find an advertisement. It can be in a magazine, it can be online, something that's one page that has a photograph and has text, particularly the text. It can be a drink, it could be a snack, it could be an entire meal, something that you have. Take the text and then also find that actual product. So if you did one for Coca-Cola, actually go out and buy or get you a Coca-Cola soft drink can or something. Take pictures of that product. Use your pictures in your ad. Use the text from the advertisement to remake this ad using either the silhouette or the picture window layout. Does that make sense? So you're essentially using one of these styles, these techniques, to remake your own ad that you found using that text in your own pictures. All right, that's the third one that you can work on once you finished up. If you need more time to work on the other one,